This is Erin with the Joy in Pens and Paper, and in this video I am going to memory keep June 29th and June 30th. I have printed out pictures using a Kodak Steps photo printer on sticker paper, and I will start off by cutting those out and arranging them on the pages in a way that makes sense to me, that will in the future evoke memories and thoughts and things like that. So you'll see me cutting out the pictures and going through that process. On Saturday, June 29th, we went to Kusadasi, and that is in Turkey, and it's on the continent of Asia. So this was, for myself and my family, our first time where we stepped foot on Asia, which was kind of a big deal. On that day, we had an excursion that was going to be later in the morning, so we had an opportunity to sleep in. I woke up nice and early, I think at about 6, and we're in this tiny little stateroom, so I kept quiet. I had downloaded some episodes from lessons in chemistry on Apple TV onto my iPad before the trip, so I watched a few episodes of that, and when it got to about 8:15-ish, I got up and took a shower, and by 8:45 I was done with the sleeping in. My husband thankfully laughed it off, but I am not a dilly-dally in the morning kind of person, so this really was not the best way for me to start my day, and it resulted in the preferred breakfast place being closed. Savor and Taste on the ship both close at 9 a.m., so we had to get breakfast from the buffet at Garden Cafe. We got breakfast, I got food in my tummy, my mood kind of shifted in a more positive direction, and then my husband and I went to the gym. On the way to the gym, we stopped by the box office and booked our tender into Mykonos, which we were going to the next day. We had attempted to book the tender from our stateroom TV, but there was an error message that I had received. In hindsight, it worked out really well, because if I had booked the tender from our stateroom TV, we would have been on tender number 4, and we ended up being on tender 14, which when I talk about Sunday, I'll talk about why that was a good thing. So then after the gym, the boys got ready, and then we went and we had lunch at Savor before going to the meetup for our excursion, which was called the Magnificent Ephesus Tour. Ephes Tour, sorry. It's spelled Ephesus, so we thought it was Ephesus, but it's pronounced Ephes. So the Magnificent Ephes Tour. We did a shuttle from the port to Ephes, and the shuttle took us up to the top of Ephes. We all got out. We had headphones in, which attached to the tour guide's microphone, and so we were able to listen as we walked through and listen and looked around. What I learned about myself on this trip is that style of exploring is a lot of input for me, and I have a hard time really appreciating everything when I have that much input coming in. So when I've got earbuds in and I'm listening to somebody, where apologies for any ignorance or crassness, but where English is their second language, so I'm having to really attend to their words to make sure that I'm hearing them and understanding them, and then seeing everything, and then feeling the heat and also scanning to make sure I kept an eye on both my husband and my son. I am a worry person, so I needed to know where they were at all times in order to feel comfortable. That was very exhausting for me. That's just who I am. But our tour guide was ultimately excellent. We walked through Ephes, which it's an ancient city that's been dug up, uncovered, preserved, and it's mostly all marble. Everything you're walking on is marble. There's a little bit of pink granite that the Egyptians had brought in. There was some mosaic tiling, and we also got to see Nike and thus the monument where the Nike swish came from, which was really cool. A lot of people were posing in front of it and such, but I just was surprised at how impacted I was by this specific excursion. I was raised in a church family and went to church every Sunday, went to youth group, co-taught Sunday school, all these things. And as an adult, that's not as big a part of my life as it was growing up. And to be walking through the streets of Ephes and hearing stories about John the Baptist and St. Paul, and they had walked those same marble stone paths and spoke at the amphitheater and talked to the people of Ephes about Christ and such. It was wonderful. I don't know if there's any other word to say. It really connected me to things from my childhood. So I really loved this excursion and this day. We then went back to Kusadasi. We did another Turkish rug demonstration, which was kind of funny because we had some of the same people on this excursion that we had on the excursion from the day before. But this time we got to actually see a woman who was weaving a rug on a loom, and we saw her tamp the rows down. We saw her trim the excess strings, and that was really cool. And then they also had this tub of hot water with silkworm pods in it, and they showed how they get the strings of silk out and then how they turn them into thread, and we got to feel it and pull it and such. And then they did the demonstration with the rugs and gave everyone an option of either wine or Turkish tea. We had some Turkish tea, and then we walked around Old Town a little bit and then down to Pigeon Island, which has a fort, before getting back on the boat. Once we got on the boat, we had dinner at Savor, and I think this was the night that the server, when we sat down, automatically brought Aiden 2 Sprites, and that became kind of a joke, which as we went on in the vacation became something a little bit bigger and a little bit more important and impactful. But we started joking with Aiden that they must have written a note in our account that, just keep them coming. And so our server brought them 2 Sprites. After dinner, they had an illusionist on the boat named Joseph Roem, Roehm, who, an excellent performer, put on an excellent show. We actually saw him later on in the cruise as well. And then my husband and I went to Howl at the Moon again, and we sat next to this really cute couple from New Jersey and stayed for maybe an hour before heading back to our stateroom. Now then comes Sunday. So Sunday, probably my favorite day of the entire trip. And I will say, I think I was a little biased coming into the trip, where I had this impression that I was really going to like Mykonos, but I really liked Mykonos. And So like I said, we were on the 14th tender when we went to breakfast because we didn't know when the tender times were going to be called. So we made sure that we set an alarm and we were at breakfast for 7 o'clock. It was not long after breakfast that they started calling tenders. And so, of course, me being who I am at my core, I got out my watch and I started timing how long between tender calls to get an idea for when hours would be called. And they kept getting called quicker. So I think we were on a tender by a little bit after 9, I believe. So when I think about if we had gotten that 4th tender, we may not have had time for breakfast even. It ended up being a really good thing that we were on that 14th tender. So we had breakfast at Taste. We went on the tender. Right when we got off the tender and stepped foot onto Mykonos, the whole vibe was exactly what I pictured. Exactly what I pictured. And both Aiden and I kept commenting that this Mykonos is what we thought Greece was going to be. Athens was very industrialized. Istanbul and Kusadasi were very industrialized. Even Thessaloniki, to a certain extent, was very industrialized compared to Mykonos, which was the classic white stucco, cobblestone streets. The quote-unquote streets were really narrow and windy, and there were cats everywhere. It just was amazing. While we were walking towards little Venice and the windmills, we went by this restaurant that we ended up deciding right away we were going to have lunch there, but it had tables on the sand, the beach, and we started talking about, gosh, when the tide comes in, people can literally sit and have their meal with their feet in the water. And that just, how many places in the world can you say that could happen? So we saw the windmills. We walked around Little Venice. We then went to, as we were just kind of wandering, we found this little coffee shop called Laundry. And so my husband and I got coffees, Aiden got a smoothie, and I got some yogurt and honey. Because while in Greece, I wanted to have all of the Greek yogurt that I could, and it just is delicious with honey. So we enjoyed that and sat for a little bit. And then we really just wandered. Wherever we wanted to go, we went. There really wasn't the possibility of getting lost, which was really great. So we just walked around, took lots of pictures of the blue shutters on the white stucco walls and the beautiful pops of florals. And we stopped to pet all the cats and really just relax a little bit. Aiden and I both got souvenirs in Mykonos. I had kind of started looking for maybe like a sweatshirt or things like that, but then I was talking to Jesse and realized I have a lot of sweatshirts and I don't necessarily want that. Years ago when Jesse and I had gone to Seattle, I got this necklace that ended up getting broken at one of my jobs. A student pulled at it and it broke the chain. But that was such a special souvenir for me, so I decided I wanted to get a piece of jewelry of some sort. I may have inspired Aiden because he ended up getting, it's in essence a fidget spinner ring. It's a two-piece ring, and the part that spins has a very traditional Grecian symbol that means unity and love. So he got a ring and it was 10 euros. I saw this necklace at a store that had, I like jewelry that's very geometrical and very basic, I guess. And it just was this V shape or two sides of a triangle. And so I went into the shop. That ended up being a piece of jewelry that had 2 necklaces in one. I actually take it off in a bit in this video and show it, so you'll get to see that in just a moment. But it was €55, not terrible. And then we continued to wander a bit, and until it was time for lunch, we went back towards where we got off the tender to this place called Kavos, and we got some more feta, another Greek salad. There's my necklace. It's so pretty. We got a couple of glasses of rosé. I may have said this in one of the other videos in this series, but my son commented that he had never seen us drink rosé before, and now all we're doing is drinking rosé, which it just seemed right. We were on vacation. It was nice and warm. And then after we had lunch, we went over to this little beach area, and we went swimming in the Aegean Sea, which I am not one to swim. That's not necessarily my jam. In fact, I was recently making plans with a friend of mine who was asking me about going to a water park, and my response was, that sounds like my worst nightmare. I'm not necessarily a water person, but I don't know if there's ever going to be a time again in my life where I can swim in the Aegean Sea. So I'm going to do that. So I went out into the water. I went underwater, which is, again, something I don't do. I have a lot of hair, so getting it wet is a whole chore and requires planning. But yeah, so after we sat on the beach for a while and dried off, then we went back on the boat. We played some rummy at Oceans on the boat. We decided, I think at this point, Oceans was not our vibe. The service at that particular complimentary venue was not great. I think we had been there 2 or 3 times at that point, and each time there seemed to be a bit of an attitude / dismissiveness. So I think that was our last time of going to Oceans. We had dinner at Savers, and then we saw a Fleetwood Mac cover band that went through the entire Rumors album, including the history behind each song, which was just phenomenal. So another excellent day.